Welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show. Another exciting show, definitely another exciting. Yes, we're going all the way to California, and we're going to talk to a beautiful young lady, a psychiatrist, Miss Sherrie Campbell. But let me tell you where we're about to go with this. We're going to dive deep. We're going to dive into DNA. We're going to dive into the do not disturb. We're going to dive into how to keep that beast mindset healthy and remove, let's call it what it is, collateral damage. So without further ado, let's welcome the best-selling author herself, Miss Sherrie Campbell. How we doing, baby girl?
I'm doing great. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I'm so excited to be on your show. I think mindset is absolutely everything, especially when it comes to a healing journey. And like you said, getting rid of collateral damage.
Now we're gonna. I wrote out 30 questions, but I'm not gonna do all 30. We're gonna pick out some bits and pieces of this journey. But before we get into the whole collateral damage of the mind, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are.
So I'm an expert that specializes in the niche of protective estrangement from family. My book, But It's Your Family's probably the very first book where an expert allowed no contact in as an option to keep yourself safe. Really, you said we're going to get into DNA. I think DNA should stand for do not abuse. And you certainly shouldn't abuse your family, especially your own children. And I've told my story quite a bit. I did a TED talk on this. We have over 500,000 views to that TED talk. So I just didn't have any idea that I wasn't alone in this situation. Going against a societal norm is family is everything. And it is for a lot of wonderful people, but it isn't for other wonderful people. So I put voice to that. And yeah, I've created a whole beautiful healing space for people that are like me.
You mentioned people that are like you. You mentioned that you realize that you're not alone, and a lot of people in this world, where they're not alone. But the fact that it happened, I do like the way that you says DNA should stand for do not abuse. Take me down your story. Like, what age was that word actually violated in your space?
I just grew up with two very toxic parents. Um, there's 9 marriages between the two of them.
What?
Um, yeah, my dad was married 5 times. My mom was married four. So I was just brought through one trauma after another, then stepkids from this other parent. I'm being forced to love these people as if they're my parents, and I can't stand half of them because many of them weren't very nice to me. Um, but there was so much drama and so much change, and my parents were very selfish and unregulated. So I was parentified very early, having to parent my parents, try to hold myself together. At times I did great at that, at other times I didn't. But I'm an athlete, and I think being an athlete gave me a pretty powerful mindset to sort of help me through some of those very horrible times in my life. But by midlife, I couldn't, I didn't want to be abused anymore or used anymore. And so I stepped totally away from my family. And now it's been 10 years.
Mhm.
And I've realized that as long as they were in my life, I couldn't even begin to heal. And my most recent book is called You Are Home. And I teach people how to take their home life back with or without their family. We have a right to protect ourselves.
Let me go here. You had a bunch of siblings, step brothers and sisters and stuff. Where were you at in the pinnacle with your mom? Like, were you the only sibling from your mom, or how did that work? So I can give the viewers a clear indication on how bringing other people's situations into your situations don't isn't always the best way to go. You're forced to have a relationship with other kids, and that's not the way it falls out. But the question is, where do you fall in the line with your as your mom's kid?
So I'm the youngest of hers. I have an older brother who was her golden child, and then I was her whipping post. Then she married a man, this second marriage. He had one kid, and that kid was out of control. Then the second man she married had four kids. Um, and none of us really got along. And we didn't spend, when we were together, it was very forced. Most of the kids were resentful of it because I think that the story is it was an affair. My mom had an affair with the man who divorced her from her previous two husbands. So, and then my dad had five marriages and they had kids, and I didn't see him quite as much, but my life was just very forced. No one cared how any of this affected me, you know. There was no consciousness that I was a child and I was seeing things and taking it in and feeling less important to her than or him than strangers. They
You men-
treated strangers nicer than they treated me, that's for sure.
you mentioned some key categories here. You mentioned that your parents did not know how to self-regulate. When you say when you look at them now, you now have your degree. When you look at them now, what was some of the contributing factors that put them in that situation that they were making poor choices, that they wasn't able to self-regulate, that you had to come in, and which one did you had to basically run past interference with more often? Was it your mom or your dad, and about what age?
I would say both, although my dad eventually was more out of my life than in my life. Um, but I lived with my mom mostly. My mom grew up extremely wealthy. So I think that she's kind of spoiled and entitled and very immature. And my dad grew up in domestic violence and like my dad's dad drowned in his own vomit from being drunk. So yeah, he drowned. So they met in eighth grade, and my mom didn't like a girl that he was dating, so my mom stole my dad from that girl just to be mean to the girl. So my mom's a bully. You know, when your mother's your first bully, that's really really hard, especially when you're a girl and she hates women. So I watched her be very capable of loving other people, but just not me. And my dad just never could get it together. You know, job failure after job failure after job failure. Um, he was a teacher. A kid was pulling pens out of his pen pocket. My dad said, "If you do that again, I'm going to break your arm." My dad broke the kid's arm, so can't teach anymore. You know, so everywhere he's gone, he ended his life as a chiropractor, but he got kicked out of chiropractic school for illegal maneuvers. Like he couldn't fall in. He was actually picked out of the state of Texas by the senator to go to West Point, and he got kicked out of West Point. Like he came from nothing. She came from everything. And, you know, they were a very toxic cocktail together. Got pregnant as an oops with my brother, got married, had me. And, you know, they were divorced by the time I was 3 years old. And my dad was physically violent with me. So
Your dad was violent with you, and your mom was abusive. What do you mean when you talk about abusive with your mom? Because she didn't like
silent
women.
treatment, passive aggressive. She'd say stuff like, don't worry, someone will marry you. You know, she's just mean. In fact, she was harder for me because her cruelty, she never yelled at me, but she'd give me the silent treatment for weeks in my own home. Um, and she didn't like, you know, the more womanly I became, the more I think she saw me as competition instead of her daughter who just wanted to be loved and have a mom. So she
Let
became
me
more and more cruel to me.
let me ask this question: for you to get to where you at today, what drove you to get to where you at today? Because it doesn't seem to, it doesn't appear that you had any supporting cast there. So how did you keep the trajectory to get to where you're at right now?
I believe in some ways that survival may be genetic, and I'm a really strong, competitive Survivor. I'm a huge underdog movie lover, like Rocky, Gladiator, Rudy, you know, Rambo, First Blood. Like I'm a boy on the inside, but I'm a fighter. And, really at the end of the day, Andre, I turned my predators into a purpose. And I think going no contact with your parents should be your very last option. This wasn't a on a whim. It took me 45 years of suffering to finally reclaim my life as my own. And the last 10 years of having no contact have been liberating. I don't hate them. I'm not in a place of a lack of forgiveness. They're just not relevant. They just don't have any relevance in my life anymore. And it's quite wonderful because I'm free to be me. And now I help millions of people.
Some people will find that almost injustice because truly we can't pick our parents, so to speak. And our parents, I guess you would call it, we'll talk about this, the DNA. You know, what was what was their parents like? You know, I mean, because you this is what you study, this is what you practice.
Yep.
Doesn't a lot of this have to fall from, apples not falling far from the tree mythology type scenario,
I think
or what
people,
are you taking
I
on
think
that?
I think people can do that. Again, my mom had absolutely everything. Her mother was a surgeon and her father was a surgeon. And my grandfather invented the artificial limb. They were rich. Okay. So she had everything. I mean, maybe she didn't get enough attention. I don't know. But m- I think when we are abused as kids, we know exactly what not to do as parents. If you don't like to be hit by your parents, don't hit your kids. I don't buy into that being an excuse for abusing your children, that you had a bad childhood. If you had a bad childhood, make a choice not to pass on that trauma to your child and your grandchildren and all of that. I've never abused my daughter ever because I know what it's like to be abused.
Mm,
So I there are a lot of people that bring that in as a reason. And you know what, Andre? To me, there's no excuse for abuse. We
mm,
all consciously choose how we show up in relationships and treat people.
mm.
For
Now,
example, people don't accidentally have affairs. You don't trip and fall with perfect acuity into someone's private parts. You choose to do that or not,
right.
So if you choose to abuse your kids, you got to look in the mirror on why you're doing that. If it's coming from your childhood, get into therapy and stop doing that. Love
Mm.
your kids enough to do that. That's why you had kids, is to love them.
Let's go here. You mentioned something, and I heard the voice really strong, infidelity and relationships. So, how has everything that impacted you as a child, did it cripple you going into relationships? Did it make you overzealous? Uh, do you always have a guard up? Are you afraid of emotional attachment? There's got to be a cliche, or an effect, another additional effect that you wind up getting that while going through all this. Does that make any sense?
Andre, I was a complete mess. I was a complete mess, Andre, for a couple of, decades. I was just a wreck, over functioning, people pleasing. Oh my God, that poor girl that I was. I was a freaking mess, making every friggin' mistake you could make. And now I'm just like, it's just sort of a beautiful disaster. But I look at where I'm at now and, I'm like, girl, you kind of kicked ass actually. I didn't like me. I didn't like anything about me. I had to change everything, and work on everything. And not everything that I was bad. I was just trying so hard to feel loved, and so I was working hard for it in all the wrong ways. And, um,
When you
but
say working hard for it in all the wrong ways, what do you mean? Because
oh my God, I
y-
was
y-
people pleasing. I was self-abandoning to make other people happy. I was trying so hard to audition for someone to pick me. I mean, I was needy. I was broken. I was desperate. I was picking bad men and bad friends. And man, I was just getting my ass kicked all over the place, and it's okay now because I learned from it. Um, I got into therapy, been in therapy for 20 years. It's been phenomenal for me. I am a therapist. I love what I do, and my life is stable. It's happy. I had to really pay attention to my mind and if all the negative thoughts and all of the things that were rotating. I had horrible things said to me all throughout my life growing up by the parents who were supposed to love me. And I believed everything they told me about myself because they were my parents. I believed I was inherently bad.
Hmm.
And I had to put a stop to all those thoughts and change those. And I did.
Let me go here. You're a therapist, and let me first say thank you so much for being so transparent, knowing that you are a therapist and people come to you for advice. But I'm always tell people therapists have issues just like we do, so don't think that they can't have issues. Knowing the fact that you've had these issues, did you ever, did you ever find yourself overcompensating, not making the same mistakes that that your parents gave to you now that you have a child? And if so, what were some of those things that you was overcompensating that was really causing collateral damage that could or that you saw may or may have was affecting your daughter? In other words, were you seeing yourself being replayed in a small version of your mom and dad?
Not through me. I didn't have my daughter till I was 33. And by that time, I'd already moved to California from where I was raised. So I was many states away and in therapy. And I'm happy to say, outside of a divorce, because I'm not with her dad. So that would be the collateral damage because I married my mom. um, and then she had to go through 14 years of really not wanting to see him very much because he's a very neglectful person. So that would be the collateral damage that, I married the wrong person, but I got the right daughter. So I would never ever want to change that because she's my angel and she's my purpose and my reason. And I'm inspired by her every day. And she's kicking ass in life in a way that I had to work much harder for because I didn't have any support. So
Mhm.
I would say that that divorce was really some collateral damage from my childhood.
Let me go here. You mentioned I married my mother. I'm gonna finish this where this is a good question. As far as I'm concerned, this is a good question. I've heard that so many times with people that say, I married this, I married this. How does that even evolve to happen from a therapist standpoint? Because I hear that so often. I married my father. He
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a I married my mother. She beat me up. I'm thinking, okay, if you're dating somebody,
yeah.
maybe I'm overthinking here. If I'm dating somebody and I see those traits that were AKA triggers, what the fuck am I dating you for?
Because those triggers are fucking familiar. When you learn love to be tension or you learn love to be conflict and you don't learn love to be love, then you've got a whole definition of love that you have to work out. Or you are trying to fix in your spouse all the things that you couldn't fix in your parents so that you could get this love. So unconsciously, we're just drawn to the shit that gave us shit. You know what I mean? So I just feel like it's an unconscious thing. I feel grateful actually that I married him because I'm able to see it now that I can name what my traumas are and name what the flaws are in me or in someone else. Then I can manage them. But I didn't grow up with the language of love. To love could have, love probably could have hit me in the face, and I would have been like, ew, because it might have
Unfamiliar.
felt suffocating to me. Who
Yeah.
knows?
I like the way you said what you just said, and I want you to recap that. And I tell individuals or people the one thing I learned from therapy is first recognizing know thyself
Yeah.
and give me the tools to recognize the levels of trauma that people deal with, you know, and this prepares me for a tool to know where I can meet you at. And you may give me certain words or certain things that you do, your actions is going to at least help me to know what category you may be put in. Not saying I'm a therapist, but you mentioned that, and I think I need to highlight on that. Why was recognizing those different levels of therapy for people important for you to be good at your craft and to recognize other people?
You know, when you know yourself and you have a language for your own stability and you have a language for your own healing, you are much more clear on who and what is going on around you. To get to that level of like self awareness is a long journey and it's
Right.
lifelong, and my for me, I hope it never stops. I hope my inbox is full when I die of really wanting to still get to the depth of who I am and my in my spirit. So the more clear you are on you, then the more clear you are on everything outside of you, who you can trust, who you can't trust, why, listening to your gut instincts, differentiating intuition from fear so that you feel like you're navigating a little more healthfully. And my latest book takes the reader all the way through that journey.
Which is the toughest category of trauma that to deal with as a therapist? Is it the narcissist? Is it the validation? Is it the what's another one? Is it the Stockholm syndrome person? Like what are some of the most critical things that you have to deal with, and why is those particular mental conditions the toughest?
I mean, narcissism is such an overused word today. You know, the nuance in the character disorders has been completely lost into narcissism. But what I think I see the most is just this societal pressure that you have to stay connected to people that abuse you because they've slapped a title of family on them. And then there's all this, you can experience tremendous guilt and shame that you've gone against that norm. Um, because then people judge you for that. And then you don't have a community, which is very, very hard. Um, but I think that people just have a hard time naming what happened to them. And then the people who abused you don't want you naming it and exposing them. And so you get caught in this middle battle between wanting to reclaim yourself and wanting to hold on to these people. But the way that families like mine work is you're in or you're out, period. You either sacrifice yourself and you go along with abuse, or you get out. And so many of us now are getting out, and estrangement is talked about more, but it's been happening since the beginning of time. We all deserve to be safe and feel safe in this world without guilt or obligation. That's, we're all individually made. I now say that I didn't come from my parents, I came through them. They were my portal to come into this beautiful lifetime of mine. And my job is to make my life the best, most loving life I can make it. Um, but I didn't come from them. No one owns me, and no one should own anyone.
What kind of resistance have you been met with since you
Ah,
have taken your own awakening moment in your daughter and um, basically created your own heaven on earth? How have you been met with resistance from AKA family friends? Because, like you said, society is now labeled that's your family. You should never leave them. They got their own issue, but they're your family.
yeah. Do you want some examples? Because I can read you an email I got.
Go right ahead.
The first one is titled Sick Fuck. Okay, I don't know this person, but These are all my books. I write about how to do all this stuff, toxic family. She says, you are destroying lives, mothers, fathers, parents. You are as sick as they get with this insane philosophy as you ascribe out of your own mental illness. You are ruining lives for good, you stupid shit ass dumb motherfucker, fake face person. Just fucking stop it. That's what I
What?
get. Yeah, the next one, she gave me another one. This one's called You Sick Fuck. You are capitalizing off pure bullshit and ruining people's lives with it. Your face is a monstrous fright. Stop doing this shit, man, or don't wonder why your karma is terrible. Never met her.
This
That's
is
what I
something.
face.
But my question here is, Sherrie, how did they even know who you are? Did they read the book? How did they come up with this conclusion to make that analogy?
Well, I've got 500,000 followers in social media. I have a TED Talk that's been viewed 500,000 times, and I've written 8 books in 10 years. So I have become very public. My thought is that one of her children found my books and wanted her to read them, maybe so they could have a healing. And this, thank God her children found my books. Could you imagine this, your mother?
Yeah.
My God, if she's this mean to me, I can't even imagine what she did to her kids, right? So she wants people like me clearly to, you know, not be here anymore.
Now,
Wild.
how do you deal with that from a psychiatrist from a professional standpoint? You don't want to feed into somebody else's. Let me rephrase this. Everybody has their opinion. They go, you got a book, it's out there. Everybody's ain't gonna accept it like peaches and cream. So, but still, we're still dealing with an emotional factor here that you still have emotions. How do you process this information and kind of say, okay, that's your way how you feel. I'm sorry that you feel that way. How do you deal with that and still keep moving forward with your message?
So in the very beginning, it was almost like I was getting abused all over again because it's other people's mother, not just mine, abusing me in the exact same way. I have a really great therapist who only treats therapists, so that's been very very helpful. I'm probably her most well known, like I'm the most public of her clients, but I don't respond to any of them. I don't respond. I'm not going to feed it. She wants some big response for me, some kind of an argument that would be fuel for her. And I would give her a piece of me that she doesn't deserve. She can have this opinion of me. Personally, I think she's kind of a fan. She mentioned my face twice. So I think she's kind of a fan. This one I can laugh at, but it's a great example of the kind of the kind of attacking that I get for standing up for myself and creating a wonderful life for me. I think they'd all like to think that I'm miserable and unhappy without my family, and I'm not. I'm actually very much happier because I'm free from abuse. Um, but I am a human being.
Right.
I am a human being. And I think it's easy to get in social media behind your keyboard and be some kind of a badass if that's what she thinks that is. I feel sorry for her, honestly, that she's that out of control and she's that desperate that she'd reach out to a stranger and attack me like that. I think it's sad for her. It might take me 48 hours to get there
Mhm.
of kind of letting it go through my body. But I will say, Andre, that I get far more love in social media and publicly than I get stuff like this. It's probably 5 to 10%. Um, the rest is you're saving my life. I
Right.
love you. Thank you. And that is what is my driving force.
Okay.
I can't let these gnats, these mosquitoes, get me to stop what I'm doing.
You relocated to California. You cut the biblical cord of
Yeah.
life, which was your family. Let's go here. You have a child. What do you tell your child when they asked about grandma, grandpa, and other members of the family that you pretty much castrated yourself from? How do you Tell
Well,
her,
my
you know,
daughter was 11, so although I moved out here from another state, my mother would visit like twice a year. Um, my daughter never felt good around my mom. Most people don't. So my daughter, as soon as my mom, she attacked me in a public place out here for a very silly reason. She followed the wrong car to a restaurant, and somehow that turned me into the second coming of Satan. Um, and I'm not sure how that is, except I had my first really nice car, and she hates it if I have nice things.
yeah.
So I think it had more to do with the kind of car that I had at the time. And and my daughter that night's like, I don't like Grammy. And I was like, I know, I'm like, but she's your grandma. I did that whole thing. But then my mom started messaging her and sending her videos like she'd never ever done that in 11 years. And she completely cut me off. My mom completely cut me off and was going to use my daughter as a pawn. I did not know what to do. I just let it go. And I didn't want to be someone who took a grandma away from a granddaughter. And then over time, my daughter's like, I blocked grandma. I don't want to deal with it. Um, she's calling my dad. So my mom was reaching out to my ex-husband to try to have a relationship with my daughter behind my back and without my permission.
How do you set boundaries like that with someone without being the victim, without having what I might call a parent alienation moment? How do you prevent that from happening? And how do you let your daughter know what's really going on without her having to choose sides and but to develop a clear understanding of this isn't mentally right?
Well, my daughter saw me be abused. I mean, she saw it with her own two eyes. That made me more sad than anything else. I would never want my daughter to see something like that. She saw it on about four different occasions. And, as wonderful as grandparents are, we don't need them. I know many kids or treated many kids that never had them because they'd already passed away. Right. But we need our parents. I didn't make my daughter choose. She chose for herself. I told her she could do whatever she wanted with that relationship. But the one thing I wasn't going to do was to allow my mother to see her behind my back and without my permission through my ex husband. That's
Yeah,
diabolical.
yeah,
So I said that was a no. And I had a long talk with my ex husband and said, you cannot create a triangle here. It's so
yeah.
diabolical. She should never ask this. It's diabolical. And to be honest, Andre, it's been 10 years. My mother really never cared about my daughter either because she'd rather die and go to her grave than say she's sorry and see me and my daughter again. Her ego is so big that she'd rather go to her grave.
Now let's
That's her
go.
choice. I can't change that.
What do you diagnose your mother with? Is that borderline personality? Is that narcissism?
I
Is
think she's borderline at her core. I think she's got a narcissistic and histrionic defense because she plays the victim at the Oscar worthy level of victimology. And my mom also has some elements of APD, which is antisocial personality disorder. She's got lots of traits of passive aggressive personality disorder, and she's a very dependent person. So her big three would be the borderline narcissistic histrionic, because she's got many traits of the rest of those character disorders. You really can't help someone like that. I mean, insurance doesn't even cover the treatment for borderline, right? It's
wow.
considered incurable. So,
My last few questions.
yeah.
My hat off to you for seeking your own therapy. How has that changed you, and what made you decide to go down that route?
I went down that route because I I was at a crossroads where I was either not going to make it or I was going to have to figure out how to make it. But I started therapy at 16. Um, I had a pretty decent eating disorder. I was anorexic for a couple of years. Maybe just trying to find some level of control over my chaotic life with all the marriages, divorces, affairs, all the things that went on until my early 20s. And the therapist was just like an anchor for me. She did see me. She told me that I wasn't the problem, that I was a symptom of all the trauma. The trauma was significant. Um, Getting away and going to college was another big separation that was very, very helpful because I went 3 hours away from home. So driving back and forth wasn't a real option. I went to a school that luckily was kind of far from where I was raised. And I sort of found my tribe. I found some good friends through that time. I was still in therapy. Um, she was still her being abusive and whatnot. But somehow, one foot in front of the other, I just think that something in my spirit felt I had a bigger purpose in my life than just being someone's whipping post. And I kept believing in that. And I got a master's degree, and that made her not like me more. Got a PhD. That really made her not like me. So she just kind of stuck into my golden brother's life and has done significant things to try to destroy his marriage. But that's all. That's their story to tell. That is not
Right.
mine. And I just kept going.
Now, how's your relationship with the one you call the golden one, your brother?
He cut me off.
Do you think he cut you off because of the what I call the divide and conquer theory?
Yeah, yeah. See, he was a professional athlete, so I was the loser kid, and he was the professional athlete. So as I started succeeding in my own right, he wanted nothing to do with me. Largely probably because maybe behind my back, if he wasn't giving my mother enough attention, she might have elevated me. You know what I mean? To keep him wanting his position. But I have to tell you, in so many ways, I think he's more abused than I am because
What
I
do
got out.
you mean?
I got out.
You mean he's more abused to sticking around for the mental fuck that he's getting, that or maybe he's not recognizing that he's being mentally fucked.
Yes. Yeah, I think he's so addicted to being the golden um that I don't he, and there's so many lies and secrets that are not my story to tell that are between them that they cannot separate. She has figured out how to fuse so deeply in that he can't be his own individual person. So I'm glad I always worshiped him as a kid, and we were close as kids in many ways because there were so many changes between our parents and moving households and then new step kids. They're in, they're out. It was wild. So we were close as kids, but as soon as I started being an adult and really coming into my own and being successful, he completely stopped talking to me. So I
Mm.
think that must come from insecurity in him and needing to maintain his golden child status in the family. I don't even think he's aware of it. It's sad. It is actually really sad.
You wrote several books.
Yes.
Which one is the most impactful for you and why?
The one I just wrote, it's called You Are Home, because I basically created a homeowner's manual for you to reclaim your life back fully. And there's a basement, there's a ground floor to be grounded, there's a mindfulness middle floor and a top floor of manifesting. Then there's a porch, a yard, a fence, and barriers on the outside for boundaries. No contact to get there. It took me 45 years. I didn't suddenly cut my mother off. It was should never have come as a shock. And she actually cut me off and I didn't mend the fence. But I tried every which way that I could to keep her in my life at every level. And she just didn't want to take any accountability for the poor treatment. And so eventually the relationship ended. I think
Mm.
we're better to be free of each other. I don't wish any harm on her. I don't want anything bad to happen to her.
Right.
Being her is probably hard enough.
What's the difference? My last question. What's the difference between that book and the previous book that you wrote?
I think with the three that I have sitting in front of me, I was sort of in my own healing still, unlayering the onion and just kind of putting it into writing in a clinical format. And I just didn't realize that my books would have this impact at all. I actually thought I would get stoned off the earth, like with that, like the email I read to you. I get my stones tossed at me, Andre, but I don't know that when people tell me that my books have changed their lives, it's almost
Right.
like I put all of my journaling into these books and shared it with the world. So
Mm.
it's been a really beautiful process. And the book I just finished is I'm the most healed I've ever been, and I'm the most happy and vivacious and hopeful, and I'm in perimenopause and I feel all these ways. I can have my moods, Andre, trust me. I can get too hot or too cold real quick, but
Ye-
I am really happy, and I think it's just been sort of liberating the last 10 years, and now I'm 55, and I'm feeling more like me every day. Yeah.
I like I like the way that sound. How can the viewer, and first of all, let me once again say thank you for taking time out to come on the show
Yes.
to share that beast mindset of resilience that you got. My next question is how can the viewers reach out to you, get a copy of the book?
Yeah, so it's wherever books are sold. And I'm Dr. Sherrie, Sherrie, on all the social media channels. And I have an amazing tribe, such a loving following. Um, and I'm so blessed. I really am so blessed. I have a whole family out there that replaces my family. And I'm very lucky for that. Very grateful.
You know what? Thank you so much for taking time out to come on. So, hey,
You
ladies,
bet. Thank you.
you guys subscribe, share, like, click that button. All it takes is one click to make a difference in your life or change somebody else's. This has been another, and I do mean another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show.